Hello, welcome back to the Nook. I'm Daniel, and today I'll be reviewing The Return of the King, Book 3 in The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. So before I get into it, I'm just going to explain something. All of my videos have contained the words in the thumbnail, spoiler free, and a friend of mine texted me and pointed out that in my The Two Towers review, I wrote spoiler free on the thumbnail, but I kind of spoiled some stuff. So I'm thinking from now on, my videos won't be spoiler free. I won't get into heavy spoilers, but I'll be outlining the main story. That way I'm not confusing the audience. So Return of the King is the third book of The Lord of the Rings, the final book. And I think it's my favorite. I think it's really good. This one follows more Sam and Frodo as they're making their way to Mordor and they're having to deal with Gollum. Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are still doing their quest. And you've got Merry and Pippin in their separate quests. So I believe Merry ends up meeting Theoden and Pippin ends up in Gondor. And it's in Gondor where he eventually meets Denethor, who's a very interesting character. Denethor being the father of Boromir. So there's a lot of standout moments in The Return of the King. In the movie, this is the movie where Shelob, the spider, comes in. Whereas, as I said in my last review, Shelob was actually in the Two Towers, at the end of the Two Towers. So you don't start with Frodo and Sam in The Return of the King, much like the Two Towers. Return of the King, you start with, I can't remember who exactly, but it might be Merry with Gandalf. Another interesting thing in this book is the Palantir. So it's a seeing stone. So Pippin ends up finding this stone. It's this big kind of almost like a crystal ball like you see in what psychics would use. In this case, Denethor or Saruman was using the Palantir, the seeing stone, to reveal things to him, and Pippin becomes kind of entranced with it. And basically, Pippin almost gives away everything. He sees Sauron himself, but he was able to kind of withstand the attack, and Gandalf takes the Palantir away from him. And eventually, Merry makes his way to Theoden, I believe. It's been a while since I finished this book, actually. So if I'm a bit vague on stuff, it's probably because I read it like a few weeks ago. I might have been back in February. So forgive me if this is a little vague. It's been a while since I read this. But yeah, there's some standout moments in The Return of the King for sure. The Battle of Pelennor Fields, which is with Theoden and I believe it's Merry. Well, Merry's not supposed to be there because Theoden figures Merry he wouldn't be able to do anything. He's too small. And I'll just say there's something really cool that happens with Merry in this battle. He sneaks into battle with the help of Dernhelm. I think that's the name of the person that's in disguise calling themselves Dernhelm. And Merry ends up with them, and Merry ends up in the battle. And I won't actually spoil it, but there's something that happens with Merry that's very important for that battle. And it's actually because of Merry and someone else that things go better for the battle. And yeah, aside from that, there's the stuff with Aragorn where he has to seek the paths of the dead, which is this undead army. They were the ghosts of an army that they had to fulfill their quest, and Aragorn basically calls them to fulfill that and to help him. And you see this in the movie too, where he calls back the army of the dead, and they kind of sweep in and fight the orcs. And that's a really cool scene in the book as well. It's interesting to see Gimli, who loves caves, but you go into these caves for the paths of the dead, and Gimli's actually scared. He's actually ashamed that he's a dwarf that's scared to go into a cave. And you see more with Legolas and Gimli's friendship. They make a promise where Gimli says he will show Legolas the caves of his dwarven people, and Legolas says, if I do that, you have to go into Fangorn Forest with me. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And then you have Pippin becoming a soldier of Gondor. He swears himself to Denethor. And of course, he's separated from Merry, his best friend at this point. And he's in Gondor. He meets some people there. He's with Gandalf. He meets Denethor. Denethor is pretty messed up. You'll see that in the movie as well. Like, Denethor is not in his right mind. He's grieving over the loss of Boromir, and he has his son Faramir, who's still alive, but Faramir, he doesn't treat him as well. He favors Boromir, who died. And at one point he says he wished Faramir had died instead. And so Faramir has to kind of deal with that burden and all of that. But I think what happens, Faramir ends up getting injured, and Denethor tries to sacrifice himself and Faramir in flames, and Faramir is saved by Pippin and Gandalf. But Faramir ends up in the Houses of Healing, which is where Merry, after his ordeal, I won't get into it, but Merry ended up getting injured in the battle. He's in the House of Healing, as well as the shield maiden Éowyn. And Aragorn ends up being the one to kind of bring about the healing of these people, of Merry, Éowyn, and Faramir, because it is said that the hands of the king are the hands of healing, and Aragorn is the one that is to become king. Yeah, so ultimately this is a really good book. It's got the epic battles. Like I said, Pelennor Fields, the one with Theoden, is really good. And so after all of this, we do get back to Frodo and Sam and their journey. And so of course they're with Gollum, or they were with Gollum. Gollum betrayed them to Shelob, and now they're on their own. Sam rescues Frodo because he was paralyzed by the spider, and he wakes up. The orcs have taken Frodo. Sam ends up rescuing Frodo from the orcs, and they end up having to wear orc clothing so they can kind of disguise themselves. And essentially, they end up having to go into Mordor. And so, of course, this whole time, the quest is for Frodo to throw the ring into Mount Doom and end it. And, well, I just don't want to spoil the way it happens, but let's just say, the most vague I can put it is the ring does get destroyed. Like that's what happens. The happy ending, the ring gets destroyed. But the way it happens, I'll leave it to you to read and find out, or watch the movie. And I will also say, there's a scene at the very end, the second to last chapter of The Return of the King, that it's a whole sequence that's not in the movie. And I won't say what happens, but it involves the Shire. And if you haven't read the book, definitely read it. And you have to see what you think of this thing they added to the thing that they didn't have in the movie, the thing that was in the book at the very end with the Shire. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, it's a really good story. I mean, in the end, I like happy endings, and a lot of epic fantasy really does have that happy ending kind of feeling where everything kind of works out at the end. And that's kind of my favorite kind of thing. I like that kind of ending, and I think Lord of the Rings delivers that. There's action, there's excitement, there's humor. Honestly, I think the movies are really well done too. So now that I have reviewed all of the Lord of the Rings, my next video will be Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I'll review that, and probably at some point I'll be done Wind and Truth. I'll be reviewing that too. So thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and remember, you're always welcome at the Nook. Bye.